For this channel, the neck mount has easily been one of my most used camera accessories. I use them constantly for things like POV unboxings, hands-on demonstrations, biking footage, and basically any time I want a first-person perspective without having to think about holding a camera. And up until now, the neck mount that's been serving me really well is this neck mount from PGYTech. I've talked about it a lot on this channel before, and the main reason it's been my go-to is because it has both of the non-negotiable features that most other neck mounts for some reason only come with one of. However, even though this PGYTech neck mount has worked really well for me, there's one complaint that I've seen coming from other people. I've seen it in a few Amazon reviews, and I've seen it mentioned a couple of times in the comments of this channel. So in this video, I want to talk about that issue and how this new neck mount I recently picked up actually solves it, and might end up being the better option overall for some people. And stick around until the very end, because just as I was about to publish this video, I stumbled across a third option that might actually offer the best of both worlds. Before I show you the new one I bought though, let me quickly run through those two non-negotiables I mentioned earlier, starting with the first, a quick release system. Having a quick release makes it much easier to mount and unmount your camera from the neck strap. This is especially clutch when you're running the camera without a dedicated quick release mount, for example the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 in its expansion adapter, or the Insta360 X5 using its 1/4 inch thread. Without a quick release at the neck mount itself, taking the camera on and off quickly becomes a hassle because you have to manually screw and unscrew it every time. And even if you are using your own quick release system on the camera, having a neck mount level quick release is still very valuable. It lets you invert the camera much faster, and it also means that when you take the camera off, you're left with far less bulk and protrusion, because you're not stuck with a quick release plate and an action camera mount hanging off the base. The second non-negotiable is the ability to strap it down more securely with a strap. Now for basic hands-on shots or demonstrations, you don't need to use the strap since the cord is fairly rigid and gravity does most of the work. But if you're doing anything moderately intense, like biking, jogging, or just moving around a lot, the strap becomes essential. It keeps the mount stable and stops the camera from bouncing around. And when you're shopping around for neck mounts on the market, you start to notice a pattern. A lot of them either include a strap but don't have a proper quick release system, or they have a quick release but no strap. Very few actually offer both. That's what makes this PGYTech neck mount a strong option, because it does both. That said, the one complaint I've seen come up about the PGYTech CapLock neck mount is regarding its size. Because the cord itself isn't particularly long, when you mount a camera upright, it can end up sitting very close to your chin, especially if you're using a taller camera like the Pocket 3 or something like the Insta360 X5. Now you can work around this by flipping the camera upside down, and that's what I tend to do if necessary. But that's not always ideal, and it doesn't really fix the core issue, which is the limited cord length overall. If you've got a thicker neck, or you're wearing this over a jacket for example, that shorter cord length might just be too tight. And that's what led me to check out this neck mount from JJC. What makes this one interesting is that it's one of the very few neck mounts that also checks both of those non-negotiable boxes, the quick release and the strap, but it does so with a significantly longer cord compared to the PGYTech one and most other neck mounts on the market. Now, for me personally, the sizing of the PGYTech neck mount was never a real problem. But even aside from fit, there are some other advantages to having a longer cord. First, if you do top-down POV shots with an action camera or 360 camera, the extra distance from your head gives you better visibility of the camera's screen. You won't have to bend your neck down as much or fight for viewing angles. Second, because the camera sits lower on your chest, biking footage gets a slightly lower angle shot, more comparable to chest mount footage and closer to the ground. This is definitely more of a personal preference, and the difference is honestly quite subtle, but depending on your shooting style, you might prefer that framing. And beyond the longer cord, this JJC neck mount also has a padded cushion on the back, unlike the PGYTech, which should make it more comfortable if you're wearing it for longer periods of time. So the obvious question is, do I think the JJC neck mount is better than the PGYTech one I've been using up until now? And honestly, it depends on the user. If the PGYTech mount feels too small or too tight for you, then yes, I'd say the JJC is absolutely the better option. It solves that sizing issue while still keeping the features that actually matter. However, if sizing isn't a problem for you, then the decision becomes much harder because there are still a few things I prefer about the PGYTech. Firstly, its smaller size and lower profile design make it much nicer to just leave around your neck when you're not actively filming. It's lighter, doesn't stand out as much, and looks pretty cool. Secondly, I prefer the strap system that PGYTech includes. It's elasticated, and because it's split into two and uses a clip, taking it on and off is much faster. You don't have to thread the strap through a strap loop every time, which is a small thing but adds up quickly in real-world use. And finally, I prefer the positioning of the cord unlock and quick release buttons on the PGYTech. Using my Osmo Action 6 with the JJC mount, the buttons can be slightly obstructed by the camera when it's mounted upright. I also prefer the slide in, slide out style quick release on the CapLock compared to the twist to lock mechanism on the JJC mount. It just feels a bit more intuitive and refined to use. So for me personally, I'll probably stick with this PGYTech one as my primary neck mount. The size works for me and it doesn't leave me with a longer, heavier cord around my neck. But if the PGYTech mount is going to be too tight for you, whether that's because of a larger build or because you'll be wearing it over a jacket, the JJC mount might just be the neck mount you've been looking for. Now that was originally going to be the end of the video, but just as I was about to publish it, I discovered there's actually a third option that's worth mentioning, one that might give you the best of both worlds. PGYTech now have a larger max version of the same neck mount I've been using, which is recommended for larger builds or wearing over winter layers. So if you like the CapLock quick release mechanism, the button placement, and the elasticated strap, but found the standard version a bit too snug, this could be exactly what you're looking for. Just keep in mind that size-wise, it's still smaller than the JJC neck mount, so if maximum strap length is your top priority, the JJC is still the better choice. But if the standard PGYTech was almost right for you and you just wanted a bit more breathing room, this max version feels like a really solid middle ground.